Good morning. As she said, my name's Dave Lewis. So a little bit about me. I graduated from here in 2001 in December. God's good. And I put my family through absolute misery before that. So my story is I overdosed on LSD, went into a drug-induced psychotic state for over 50 days, got locked in jail. My poor parents had to sit across the glass from me in jail, not even knowing if I was ever going to come out of that. By the grace of God, and through medication, I came out of it. And I spent the next 6 months, so that was the summer of 2000 when I graduated from high school, that whole incident happened. Then for the next 6 months, some of you probably experienced this, my parents let me still live with them and try to get it right. They sent me to intensive outpatient programs. They sent me to see a counselor. They sent me to 12-step groups. And some of you know the story. I just kept using again, over and over and over again. And then finally, and maybe some of you have done this, they did the tough thing and they said, you either go to Teen Challenge or we're kicking you out of the house. And I had legal charges I had to face, and I went. And then, funny story, you're not supposed to have a phone call for the first couple of weeks, called blackout period. Well, I manipulated a phone call from my counselor, which we're good at doing. And I called him. My dad was the enabler. So my dad was always the one who was like, oh, give him another chance, it'll be okay, it's just a phase. And my mom would be like, we gotta do something about this is out of control. So I'm calling and the phone's ringing, I'm like, come on Dad, pick up, and it's my mom. So I'm like, well, this is the only phone call I'm going to get. Well, my first question was, is Dad there? No, he's not there. Okay, so I'm going to give it a shot, right? So I'm like, Mom, I can't stand this place. It's like a cult. I can't believe you sent me here. This place is horrible. I need to leave. And my mom said, well, we're not coming to get you. So I tried to pull it. I said, okay, well, I'll just go live under a bridge. What do you think about that? Now here's something you gotta know about me. I was a spoiled, rotten suburban kid. I'd never lived a day homeless in my entire life, okay? And by the way, it was like January 8th too. So it was like 0 degrees out. So she called my bluff and she's like, no, we're not coming to get you. I hung up the phone. I'm like, no! But that's what needed to happen because that gave me the space to at least, okay, I have to be here. No one really wants to be in treatment. That's the dirty little secret, right? Nobody plans to come to a place like this like they plan to go on a cruise to the Caribbean, okay? This place is a challenge, it's a sacrifice. But that's what I needed. I needed my family to hold their ground, stand firm, and keep me where I needed to be. I'll tell more about that story later. So I'm married. We have 4 adopted kids. And I graduated in 2001. I did the intern training program that Michael was talking about, which I'm going to talk about that a little bit during this too, because I really believe in the intern training program. And that was a big thing in my life. And then I left from Pittsburgh and I went to the Pittsburgh Center. And then after I did a year ITP, I went and met my wife and went to college, all that good stuff. Then I came back in 2006 and I became a counselor in the Pittsburgh Center. And then, for some crazy reason, they made me the director of it 4 years ago. So that's what I've been doing ever since. So, one thing, and let me go to the next slide, because this might sound, so for a lot of people, so I think I've worked with this might sound weird, but I'm just going to say it. I think I've worked with over 200 guys who have relapsed, who graduated our program since 2006. So you might say, 200? What happened to your success rate? I thought you guys had this great success rate. Well, the success rate of Teen Challenge, a lot of people don't realize this. The studies, you maybe heard of the studies, the 86% success rate, 70%. The key to that study was this is 5 years after they graduate that they're doing well. So what does that mean? That means within that first 5 years, they could have relapsed multiple times. The key is after that 5 years they're stabilized. So this is right off the drugabuse.gov website. Does relapse to drug use mean treatment is fatal? No. The chronic nature of addiction means that relapsing to drug use is not only possible, but also likely. That might be scary for some of you, but you gotta hear that. It's not possible, but also likely. Relapse rates are similar to those for other well-characterized chronic medical illnesses such as diabetes, hypertension, and asthma, which have also both physiological and behavioral components. Now here's what I'm going to hit on in this training. Treatment of chronic diseases involves changing deeply embedded behaviors. So the connection here, like with diabetes, right? Diabetes, there's one sense in which it's a physiological change in the way insulin is released into your body, et cetera, but there's also behavioral components to the diabetes. So if you change your diet and exercise and eat, it can reduce it. It's the same thing with addiction. There's behavioral patterns that are underneath this that we need to look at. For the addicted patient, lapses back to drug use indicate that treatment needs to be reinstated or adjusted, or that alternate treatment is needed. So the goals for this training, very simple. What are the 4 deeply embedded behaviors that need to be addressed to prevent relapse? So what are the deeply embedded behaviors that need to be looked at that are deeper than just the use of the drug and alcohol that we need to address to stay on the path to recovery, which I need to address in my own life still? Okay, one thing you'll hear in this training, I've been clean and sober for 17 years, but I know I'm one choice away from going into the restoration program. And I have to know that about myself. I can't get to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm good now. I'll never be good. I have to be in recovery for the rest of my life. And then we're going to learn what role do you folks have, family, church, community, in helping your loved ones stay on the right path. And you know, one of the hardest things about this whole process is, you know what you're going to learn? You have a role, but at the end of the day, you can't smack. I know some of you, don't you wish you could just smack your loved one in the face and they would just snap out of all this? The magic of mother smack? Quit! Okay, he's good now. You know, maybe some of you don't have to admit that you've done that. Maybe you've done that, but you know that doesn't work. But we wish we could do that. A lot of times, all our role is to support, guide, point out. But a lot of times, right, the choice is theirs what they're going to do. And then I want to have ample time for questions and answers. So please formulate your questions, while you're listening to me, or jot them down. And then I want to have plenty of time for that. So what are the four deeply embedded behaviors? Just real quick, we'll go over each one. Insufficient motivations to stay in sobriety is the first one. Focusing only on obvious outward behaviors to the neglect of inward. Not asking for help before relapse. And excessive compulsive behaviors to deal with problems and or stress. So behavior 1. So having correct motivation to stay away from drugs and alcohol is the key. It's like having fuel in the car. I have to ask myself the question, why am I staying sober today? I have to ask myself that every day. Why today am I choosing not to pick up drugs or alcohol? What is motivating me to make that choice? So it's like your car out there, right? You could have the nicest car. A guy can go through this whole program and everything's great. You know, some of your loved ones, see how much muscle they build in their hair? They've got a nice weight room, right? They walk in, what's going on? Hey, how you doing, Mom? Like, whoa, what happened with you? Working out, huh? You know, they can get it all buff and in shape and things looking good. And you can have the nicest, sweetest car out there, right? You drove up in a Porsche or something. But if there's no fuel in the tank, what good is that car? Well, you can just look at it. There has to be fuel in the tank. So what we're talking about here is there has to be the proper fuel in the tank for someone to stay on this path. And what I'm saying here is many times we are motivated to stay sober by things that won't put enough fuel in the tank. Many individuals can make it through the entire 12-month program by motivating themselves with things that in the end will not provide enough fuel to say no, I underline that, when, not if, when the temptation to use drugs or alcohol comes. It will come. It will come. You just need to be straight up about that. This isn't a situation where they finish this program and they never have another urge or desire to use drugs or alcohol again. That's just not the case. I have urges to use drugs and alcohol sometimes. I've been clean 17 years. I was just cleaning out, I'll just be honest, I was cleaning out my office and I found a bag of old prescription pills in a drawer that I forgot was there. It was like a year ago. And I open it up, and there's pills in there that I like to use back in the day. And I go, ooh, and for a split second, I said, wow, I remember what it felt like to take those. Now right away, I told one of my counselor buddies there, I said, hey man, I just want to let you know I'm throwing this bag of pills away just so I'm accountable and I throw them away. But this is important. This happens. There's going to be urges. So the question is, how do I fight those? What do I do? And you know the first thing I'm doing? I'm telling a group of people who came to family day that I just had that I'm the director of an induction. Well, my boss doesn't find out, right? No! This is the whole point. The whole point is we need to be honest with ourselves, those of us who are in recovery, that this is a daily struggle. And what is the fuel we put in the tank? We have to have the right motivation when the temptation to use comes. These motivations are not bad in and of themselves, but they are not sufficient to provide the motivation to continue in the life of sobriety in the long run. Now, when I click to this next slide, okay, this is always the thing. The motivations that end up not being enough to keep someone away from drugs and alcohol long term, they are good things that get corrupted. In other words, look at some of these things. Okay, relationship with a significant other and or your children. So a lot of guys, right, I'm going to do this for my kids. They need a father in their life. I'm going to get it right. Now you would say, well, that's great. That's a great motivation. But what I'm trying to say is, that can't be the primary motivation. And some of you probably could say, you know what, I agree with that. I've seen my loved one doing really good and he had everything to lose and he still chose drugs over his kids. So you've had this experience. Why wasn't that enough? Look at the next one. Prove to your family or friends that you are normal. This is a big one. Many times your loved one is desperate to have you view them as quote-unquote normal. Desperate. It's a desperate desire in their heart. So for example, there's no Steeler fans or Browns fans out here, right? You're all sold out. Okay, but so you're sitting there and you're sitting and watching a Steeler game, and you just got out of Teen Challenge, and Uncle Bob, Uncle Bob, there's no problem with Uncle Bob. He cracks a few Coors Lights while he watches the Steeler game, right? And your loved one is sitting on a couch with Uncle Bob, and he pulls out a few Coors Lights, and he says, "Hey, man, let's have a beer when we're watching the Steeler game." Now, there's going to be this thing that's going to be activating your loved one right away. You know what? I'm so desperate. Not because, now maybe they want to catch a buzz off the beer. Don't get me wrong, that's part of it. But another part of it is, I'm so desperate to prove to Uncle Bob that I am normal. I'm not some weird addict person who can't do normal things. I can drink a Coors Light with Uncle Bob. That's the path toward their drug of choice. It'll start with one Coors Light, and before you know, they're doing heroin again. But you got to understand that dynamic. That motivation doesn't work. So you have to explain to your loved one. We explain that to them here. You are not a normal person. You are an individual who has an affliction called substance use disorder. You, for the rest of your life, have to understand there's certain things that Uncle Bob can do that you can't do. You can't control your use of alcohol. That motivation, man, is driving a lot of your loved ones to remain here. They want to prove to everybody that they're normal and that they can do it. And many times that burns them out and they end up falling off because they can't do it. They can't be normal. Sorry, the rest of my life, I have to admit this to myself, for the rest of my life, I cannot drink a drop of alcohol. I mean, who would want to have a glass of wine? I can't do it because I can't control myself. It's like having a car with no brake pedal and only a gas pedal. That's how I am. I can't stop it. Desire for money, job, vehicle, cell phone, materialism. Oh, for some of our guys, oh, if only I got that Ford F-150 truck. If only I got this money. If only I had this. That would keep me clean, right? That would motivate me. There's no way I would use drugs. I would lose my truck. Some of you family members know. How many of your loved ones have gotten the nice things and they flushed it all down the toilet to use drugs? It is not enough of a motivation. And I know we use family members, we desperate. Listen, if you graduate Teen Challenge, I'll give you a truck. I mean, I don't know if any of that's on the table. Some guys have told me some crazy stuff that their families promise them if they do rehab. Which, it's okay to provide incentives, but you just have to understand that's not deep enough to keep them on the right path. Legal consequences. You would think that would be enough to get someone to stop using, right? Like, you're about to go to jail for like 5 years. Nope. Not enough. Not enough. Well, your probation officer is going to give you urine tests. Is that? No, not enough. Family consequences, being kicked out of the home, losing relationships. Or this one. This is a classic one. Hey man, why are you never going to use drugs and alcohol again? Oh man, I can't go through that again. I can't go through. You ever heard that one? I can't go through it again. It's too painful. That's not enough. That's not enough. Because there's this weird thing that goes on with the mentality that's behind addiction, is you forget about the bad times and only remember the good times. So guys like us sit up here all day, and they'll sit up there in their rec room and talk about how amazing it was when they got high and they got this drug or they did that, and then they totally forget, well, don't you remember how miserable it was too? Oh, no, I don't remember that part. So that's not enough either. So my basic point here in behavior 1 is, one of the deeply entrenched behaviors is we need to understand that we have to have a deeper motivation to stay on the path to recovery, a much deeper motivation than just getting stuff back, being normal, being quote-unquote successful, and getting stuff, having stuff. Well, what do we teach here? Well, we teach that the sufficient motivation, number 1, is our relationship with God in Christ. So at the end of the day, to get to this place where I am thankful and grateful for His grace in my life every day. That's it. To just wake up in the morning and say, God, thank you for saving me. Thank you for giving me food to eat, a bed to sleep in, clothes to wear. And if I can be content with that and not always have to go to the next thing, and I need the next thing to make me happy, the next thing to make me happy. But you guys will see it when you take your family member out of the past. It's all about, oh, can we stop here? Oh, can we go there? Oh, can you buy me this? Oh, I need this new watch. Oh, I need this. And you'll see it. You'll see it operating. You'll see, like, this makes me happy if I have this thing or I get that thing. And, you can tell them, you can blame me for everything you tell them, by the way, on the past day if you want. Well, this guy Dave told me that you need to watch, always trying to find the next happiness out of material things, because it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's all about the relationship in Christ and being thankful and being content. Contentment gained by thinking of where my life should be and being grateful for what I have rather than complaining about what I don't have. This is why our intern training program is so successful. It teaches contentment. The intern training program, you get put in a room where all your belongings still fit in the trunk of a car. You get a small stipend and you serve the ministry. Oh, and then there's some brothers over there that work with the interns closely, and they'll tell you that is the test. They can go through the whole 12-month program and kind of, settle in and deal with what they have to deal with because they're in the 12-month program. But once they get into the intern program, they get a little more freedom, and then this vicious entitlement mentality manifests itself, where it's just like, I want this, how come I can't have that? You need to give me this, I want that. And the key to someone staying sober long term is they challenge that mentality in themselves every day. They catch themselves and they say, why am I complaining? I should be in jail for the rest of my life. Why am I complaining? I should be dead. I mean, many of you probably have, maybe overdose survivors in this room where your child overdosed and survived it. I should be dead. So just remember that every day. Remember how grateful I should be and thankful instead of always complaining and moaning and bickering about what I need this and I need that. So to fight for contentment, to fight for that contentment is huge. And then of course, so the relationship with God and being content and being grateful and thankful for the little things in life and stop wanting all the big things. And also their relationship with others. The people that make it long-term sobriety, you know what they found? They found more joy in helping others than helping themselves. So in other words, they fill that void of material things will make me happy, my success will make me happy. You know what they do? They switch it up and they say, I find happiness in seeing others succeed. That was my breakthrough when I was in the intern training program. My breakthrough was when I started enjoying seeing guys come into the program and have their lives change because I was impacting them. That gave me more joy than what was going on in my own personal life. Does that make sense? So you have to push your loved one to get involved in the church, involved in a community group, involved in volunteering, because you need to teach them helping others is more important than you yourself. It's huge. And that's a big breakthrough that guys need to have, is finding more joy in that. So that's behavior one. So behavior one is we need to teach them this is the proper motivation. They're going to have to fight for it every day. Every day is going to be a fight. But I need to remember that the reason that I'm staying sober today is because of what Jesus has done for me and because of what I can do for others, to help others. Okay, behavior two. I'm just checking my time, sorry. Okay. Focusing only on the obvious, outward behaviors to the neglect of the inward. Okay, the second significant behavior that needs to be changed is our tendency to think that as long as I'm not using drugs or alcohol, that I'm doing great. We compromise with all kinds of little behaviors and all kinds of horrible attitudes, but excuse them by saying, at least I'm not using. This will be one of the go-to responses from your loved one when you try to challenge them on some behavior. Well, at least I'm not getting high, Mom. At least I'm not doing crazy, And you're trying to say, well, wait a minute, I don't think that behavior is okay. Well, at least I'm not getting high. You got to find a way to break through that. Like, listen, it's not just about your outward behaviors. Okay? Alcoholics Anonymous has always called this what's called a dry drunk. Have you ever heard that term? Somebody who stopped drinking, but still has the same exact attitude problems, same exact personality problems, but they're just not drinking. Jesus said, you clean the outside of the cup, but the inside remains filthy. It's critical for us to continue to work our inner self in order to continue working our road to recovery. So what are examples of some of these behaviors? Discontentment, entitlement. I mentioned that one earlier. So, yes, you can be clean and sober and not have put a drop of drugs into your bloodstream for 12 months. But if you're still walking around entitled and discontent and always needing more and more, that's a problem. Boredom. That's probably the number one survey says, Family Feud type thing. Why do guys say they relapse? It's boredom. It's like universal. Like, why did you go use? Well, I was bored, man. You only play so much Xbox, right? You sit around and, that's why it's very key. Like, you need to understand that people fill up their time with work and meaningful things and doing things like that. They don't just sit on a couch. So boredom is a major issue that needs to be addressed in recovery. Someone needs to learn how to not be bored, basically. You need to learn how to be excited about life and have some zest for life and do things that matter and give you meaning. Anger and frustration. Okay? You got to address the anger that comes out. I mean, I shock myself sometimes. I can't allow my anger to get the best of me and just go off on this tangent where I'm all enraged about something and all mad. That's really not good for me. Anxiety and depression. We have to deal with these things. You can be clean and sober, but if you have crippling anxiety or crippling depression and you're not addressing it, that's a one-way trip to relapse right there. They have to get help with anxiety and depression. Judgmental attitude and gossip. Oh, that's a big red flag. Always talking about it. We're really good at this. Trust me, I'm a master at pointing out your faults and not pointing out my own. I am a veteran Jedi master at that, okay? I can point out all your flaws all day, and then when it comes to mine, oh, great. So that's a big red flag. No, that attitude needs to be challenged. You need to be more worried about your own flaws and faults than those around you. That is not a good sign. Unforgiveness and bitterness. Somebody who you just can't forgive somebody. You just always have this negativity toward other people. It's bad. So these are examples of inner attitudes. And here's the problem. Like I said, many times they go unaddressed because all we're focused on is, oh, isn't he doing so good? Look at him. And guys like us clean up so good too. It's just incredible. They'll come down, and if they're going on a path with you, they're dressing to impress, right? They got their new kicks on, they got their hat, they got their, I'm going on a pass. It's funny, you see guys walking around the mountain, they're all super dressed up. Why are you dressed up? Oh, I'm going to the doctor. You know what I mean? You're going to the doctor. I'm going to the doctor. I got a doctor's appointment. Like, hey, you're dressed like going out for a night on the town. Yeah. So we clean up real good, and that's great, and we rejoice in these changes that you can see with your eyes, but what you got to be careful with is the changes you can see with your eyes sometimes conceal and mask the things that are going on in the heart. Because that's really the fountain of where a relapse is going to come from. It's not always going to come from, oh, well, they just went and hung out with so-and-so, and he had some heroin in his pocket, and he just happened to use it with him. I guess relapse can happen that way from time to time, but it usually doesn't happen that way. Usually the way it happens is there's all these inner attitudes that are churning and churning and churning and not being addressed and not being dealt with. And then that opens up the door for them to fall into the relapse. Rejection, inability to connect, isolation is a big one. You can't allow your loved one to isolate. You have to challenge them and say, why are you just sitting at home all day? You need to get some friends, you need to get some connections, you need to get with some people. Don't just isolate yourself constantly. And then selfishness, just pure selfishness. So what do we need to do? Those who succeed in maintaining long-term recovery seek to actively continue taking a moral inventory of all character defects, both external and internal. Okay, so the reason why I'm clean and sober today, I'm convinced, is one of the things that I have to do is I have to continue to look at my own garbage that's still in my heart and my issues and continue to bring those to the table. They also seek, and this is very key, they also seek out and keep people in their lives who will point out these inner attitudes and challenge them to change. Family, spouse, church, or other support group. My wife is used. This is her primary role. She would hate that I say it, but it is true. This is her primary role in my life, to point out my crap and call me to the carpet on it. I mean, that's a pattern I've seen just in my experience. The Teen Challenge graduates who make it, they usually end up marrying a strong-willed woman who stands up to them and says, you're not all that, dude. Okay? Here's the girl you do not want your loved one to get with. Now we might have some women's represent too, so it goes in both ways. But it's especially with the guys. It's these guys, man. You know, they go up to the girl at church. Oh, she's a Christian, by the way, so it's gotta be okay, right? Goes up to her and, you know, oh, yeah, you know what's up, baby? I went through Teen Challenge, you know what I mean? I'm blah, blah, blah. If they tell the truth about that, by the way. That doesn't always happen. And then she just melts in there and, oh, really, you're a bad boy. Oh. That is not the girl that he needs to be with. You know the girl he needs to be with? The one she looks him up and down and says, man, you ain't all that. Get away from me. That's the one he should chase after. Okay? The one who's actually going to hold him accountable and call him on his stuff and say, you know what, man, you're just full of crap right now. I'm not telling you. That's what we need. We need that. And that doesn't only come from a spouse. It comes from the family. It comes from the church. It comes from the group that, you know, if they go to a 12-step group or a support group, that's what those things are designed to do. Point out these inner issues and bring them to the surface. And you know what? In my life, you know, yeah, okay, I'm a Christian, I read my Bible, I pray, and that brings me some conviction of sin in my life and my issues, but you know what? You know, in my life, you know who God uses to point out my stuff? Other people. 99% of the time. God puts someone in my life and they point out my stuff. I don't like it. It rubs me the wrong way. But that's what I need to stay on the right path. Okay, behavior 3. Now, as I said, I've worked with easily over 200 graduates who've relapsed. And listen, I'm not exaggerating this. There's no exception to this. There's no exception. I have never got an answer yes to this following conversation with someone who wound up in restoration. Never once. Here's how the conversation goes. How long was it between the time you first started having a desire to use drugs and when you actually used? So you understand the question? So there's always a window. There's always a window. I mean, nobody just trips on the ground and a heroin needle falls in their arm. And they're like, oh no, I relapsed. Like, no, there's always a window of, okay, I'm starting to entertain the idea of using. I'm starting to have an urge, starting to have a desire. And then when they actually give into it, there's always a time gap, okay? So tell me about that time gap. Oh, it was about a week, it was about a month, you know, okay. And then I ask the next question. During that week or that month, listen, this is did you tell anybody about this desire to use? And did you ask anyone for help before you gave into it? No. Never had a yes to that question for a guy who ended up in our restoration program. Never. And everyone knows what the restoration program, I mean, I gotta explain this. So the restoration program is when somebody, they graduate our 12-month program, the long-term program, they're eligible to come back if they've fallen back into their drug and alcohol use. Just so you know. So it's a resource available to everyone in this room. I just want to let you know that. It's a resource that we have that should give you some comfort, and you should not hesitate to contact us if, God forbid, that happens. Because it's not the end of the world. Some of my key staff members at my center are guys who relapsed and went through the restoration program. There's some key people here that are that way too. So it's not the end of the world. I just want to point that out. But this is what it always is. They have the urge to use it, but they don't tell anyone about it. It never comes out till after. So what we need to figure out is how can we get our loved ones to be a little more open and honest about their struggle. It's very hard. Why is it so hard? Well, there's a couple reasons. So why is it so hard for your loved one to go up to somebody and be like, please help me, I want to use heroin today? You just think about it, even saying that to somebody. I mean, I really want to go get high today, please help me. Well, here's the most basic one. We don't want to ruin our opportunity to use. We know deep down that if we confess our desire to use, this will cut off our opportunity to use in the future. This is called having reservations in AA. So one of the most basic reasons why your loved one is going to tell you that they're having a struggle is they don't want to ruin the opportunity, because they know you're going to come down like gangbusters. I really want to use today. Give me your phone. Give me the car keys. You ain't going nowhere. Okay? Which isn't necessarily the best response, by the way. If they have the courage to come up to you as a family and say, listen, I'm really struggling today, that's not the best. The best response isn't to just cut them off. Actually, so I got a bunch of interns that work for me, and they're in recovery, and they'll relapse from time to time, and I tell them, they don't believe me ever, but I tell them, hey guys, you know who I trust more? I have like 12 interns that work for me at the Western PA Center, right? I'll sit all 12 of them down and I'll say to them, you know who I trust more out of you guys? I trust the guy who says to me, Dave, I'm really struggling. I want to use today. I trust that guy more than the guy who looks at me and goes, no, I'm good. I'm good. Ain't had a desire to use for like a long time. I'm like, watch that guy, urine test him when he gets back. Sounds counterintuitive, right? But it's actually not. The guy who actually is going to confess he has a struggle is actually more likely to do well than the guy who's going to act like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. There ain't nothing. No, it's a struggle. Number two, and I won't speak for the entire organization of Teen Challenge, I'll just speak for myself. Many times I have taught guys incorrectly that they are, quote unquote, delivered from the desire to use because they're a Christian and they shouldn't have any more struggles anymore. So if your loved one picks up on that type of Christian teaching, right, and they say to themselves, well, I'm a Christian now. I'm delivered. I have victory now. I have no more struggles. Then that sets them up for a relapse. You know why? Because they don't take the desire to use seriously then. They attribute it to the devil or some outside thing. It can't be coming from within me because I've been delivered. No, you still have the struggle. They're crippled by guilt and shame for having the urge. That's a big one. So how can I walk up to somebody and tell them I'm struggling with wanting to use? That's shameful. Shouldn't I not have this desire anymore? So teaching them to say, no, it's normal to have these desires. This is part of the process. Part of the process is you're going to still have struggles. You're going to still have temptations. And then many times, the fourth one, we're not in an environment that promotes and produces openness, honesty, and says it's normal to have urges and desires to use. So, I'll tell a quick story. So this is early on when I was a counselor in Pittsburgh. And a guy came back from a doctor's appointment or a pass or something, and he brought drugs back. He brought a laptop, a cell phone, a fake burner cell phone, so we found the first cell phone, but he really had another cell phone, and it was crazy. So we caught him, and whoever staff member brought the stuff down that we found on him, there was a bottle of, they're called Klonopins. It was one of my favorite drug of choices to use. And I'm sitting there with the director and another counselor, and we're sitting in the hallway, and somehow the stuff gets handed to me. So I'm holding in my hand a bottle of these pills that I like, okay? And then it was decided we're going to flush them down the toilet. So at our center, there's this long hallway. So I get up, and I'm walking by myself down this long hallway to go to the staff bathroom. And as soon as I turn the corner, this vicious thoughts hit me. Oh, you can use those. No one's going to know. They're going to think you flush them down the toilet. You could fake flush them down the toilet. And then it started getting real crazy. But you could stuff toilet paper in the pill bottle so it doesn't make the shit. Like, it was getting crazy. I'm a counselor in a teen challenge. Hello. And I'm walking down the hallway going, oh my God. So I go into the bathroom, and the bathroom door closed. It got real intense. It was like, I could use these. Oh, it would feel so good to get it. And I just flushed them down the toilet. Now, okay, yeah, that was good. But check out the next thing. Now I'm faced with a dilemma. I am a counselor who's supposed to help other guys overcome their addiction, and I just had a serious urge to relapse. What do I do with that information? Do I hide it? Do I just keep it to myself? And what I found myself doing, and this was my huge breakthrough, the next day when I taught a class, I told the guys about that experience. And you know what it did for them? Well, first of all, they were going, why are you telling us this right now? I mean, you know, there's in the field, some people would say you shouldn't disclose that much, but, you know, I disclosed it. And a couple of the guys were just like blown away that here we have an environment where a leader is actually being open with his struggles, and then encourage them to be open. And that's part of why I'm still walking this path, because I can share this with this group and say, you know, I have struggles, I have urges, I have accountability in my life. You know, they can, you know, my bosses can hit me with a urine test whenever they feel like it. It doesn't bother me. They could call the center right now and be like, hey, give him, maybe they will, since someone is going to get, it's going to get back to them. Hey, you need to check on that Dave Lewis. He's talking about these urges he's having. It's fine. I need that accountability. I need that in my life. I need to be open and honest. So what do we need to do for this behavior 3? This behavior 3, they need to get plugged into a group or a community and an individual where they can freely talk about their struggles to use without fear of retaliation or shame. Whether that's a mentor, a sponsor at NA or AA, a pastor, a family friend. Now, I put in parentheses there, and it's a good question to ask. Is close family always the best for them to come to? No. I mean, think if you're a spouse in this room, wouldn't that would be tough for to come up, hey, honey, I really want to get high today. You might not have the emotional capability to be like, okay, let's talk about that. You might be like, that's crazy, you're freaking me out right now, honey. I remember what it was like last time you went out and got high, you know? So that might be like, that's why you need to get them, encourage them to, you know, connect with someone who they can share that with, and it's confidential, you know, and they can really have that discussion, maybe a counselor, like I said, a sponsor, something like that. That's important. When, not if, they are tempted to use substances, they call someone or go to a meeting, a church group, etc. They actively help others who are struggling with addiction by contributing to a support group or church. So, you know, it's very important. We need to be in a place where we can share our struggles. So, you as the family, one of the conversations you need to have with your loved one is listen. What I learned in Family Day today, and this is the most practical, easy thing for them to do, by the way. I mean, it doesn't take any emotional development, any skill, any growth. They could hate every part about being here and not grow at all. But one thing they can easily do is go tell someone if you're having an urge to go use. Pick up the phone and tell someone. Very practical, very simple, something they can do right away. And it does wonders. If you bring that into the light, if you bring that into the forefront, it takes the power away from it. It's a really powerful thing that we need to do. Okay, final behavior. Lack of self-control over bodily impulse. This is one of the hallmarks of those in recovery from substance use disorder. In my experience, almost all relapses begin with dabbling in the following areas. And this is another one. This is every single one. There's no exception to this. Like I said, I've worked with over 200. No exception at all. Every restoration student I've worked with, without exception, found their way back to their drug of choice through dabbling with what we call, here's what we call it, ready? I did a little artwork here. Amber's the PowerPoint queen. See if she thinks it's good. Oh, there it is. We call it the unholy trinity of relapse. Here they are. sexual sin / romantic relationships, alcohol, and quote-unquote legal mood-altering substances. Every single guy who finds their way back to their drug of choice starts dabbling in these 3 areas first. Every single one. It's always nicotine, it's always smoking cigarettes first, then it goes to drinking a little bit of alcohol, then have a little honey on the side. Okay? All 3 of those together, they end up going back to their drug of choice. I mean, every single, it's automatic. When a guy comes into restoration, the first thing I ask is, what was her name? What do you mean? What was her name, man? Like, what girl were you messing with that you had no business messing with? What do you, okay, her name was so, okay, thank you. And were you smoking cigarettes? Oh yeah. And were you drinking alcohol and thinking, you'll hear this from your loved one, Mom, alcohol was never my thing. Remember that one? Alcohol was never my thing. I'm just a heroin addict. Alcohol was never a problem for me. And that's a dangerous mentality, because one substance will always lead to the next one. Okay? And notice the other thing. So you'll see this. I mean, some of you, you don't have to raise your hand, but I can almost promise you at least half of the guys represented here by their families, when you take them out of their past, they're going to ask you to buy them what? An energy drink. Right? I want money in a Monster energy drink. I need this, I need that. I mean, it's tobacco, caffeine, cold medicine, allergy medicine, non-narcotic meds, weightlifting supplements. Okay? So, all these things and what's the common denominator with all these things? See, drug and alcohol addiction feeds off of, in my physical body, I get a relief. This makes me feel good instantly. That's the key. This thing I do instantly makes me feel good in my physical body. So what guys like me have to do is I have to stop myself and say no to my physical body when it wants this, and the other thing. And it all comes down to this kind of stuff. Escape. This is the acronym. Escape. I got this off of this guy, Gorski. He's real good. If you get some of his books, he's a good guy to talk about addiction. So how does this process work? Real quick. E is for evade. So life is full of problems, right? Everyone knows that? Anyone here have a problem-free life right now? Everything's problem-free? Of course, there's problems. It's life. There's challenges. But guys like us who have addictions, we have a hard time facing problems directly. So what we'll do is we'll evade. That's the E. So we evade the problem. But you know what happens when you evade a problem? It causes stress. I mean, that's basic human nature. Most human beings are stressed out because they're not directly facing the problems in their life. They're either avoiding them, they're pretending they don't exist, they're not communicating directly with the person that's causing the problem, so that causes more stress. So problems cause stress. And if you don't deal with your problems, you'll get stressed out. And then what do you do to relieve stress? C, compulsive behaviors. A compulsive behavior is a behavior that you engage in that gives you short-term release from your stress, but it actually causes more stress in the long run. And guys like me are super good at compulsive behaviors. Oh my. Okay? I can turn anything into a compulsive behavior. Okay, real quick story, I'm almost out of time. Real quick story. So my kids have an Xbox, right? I don't even want to tell the story, it's so embarrassing. So my wife, this is my wife's fault though, by the way, so let's just make that clear, this is all her fault. She got me this Walking Dead first-person shooter game for the Xbox. So it was a real cool game, you know? It's like you can shoot up zombies and stuff. So, and I can't play video games, I get addicted to them, okay? So I'm sneaking out of bed. I'm waiting till my wife goes to bed and falls asleep, and I'm slipping out of bed, going to the other room, and I'm playing this thing till like 2 in the morning. And then the one night she's yelling, "Where are you at?" "Oh, no," and I'm lying to her, like, "Oh, I'm just not doing this thing over here." And I have to stop myself because I'm having stress at work. I'm having stress. I mean, my life is filled with stress. I have a lot of, it's just life. I have a lot of responsibilities. And I'm playing a video game. And it's just taking me to this other world, and I'm just relieving my stress with it. It was a super bad, unhealthy behavior. And like I said earlier, God bless my wife. She's not going to put up with it at all. She was basically like, I do not want to catch you again sneaking out of bed and going to play that video game. Well, you bought it for me, I don't care. Oh, here's another one. And then we were on this diet. I'm on this diet with her, where we're not supposed to have sugar, and I got a mocha frappe. And so I went to go run an errand. I got a mocha frappe, right? And we have cameras on our front porch, and I forgot we had the camera. So I drink the thing, and I go up, and I'm looking. It's horrible on the camera, too. I'm looking. And I'm like, she can't see out the window, so I go up to the trash can, I put it in, right, and I hide it in the trash. I come walking in the front door. What did you just put in the trash can? And guess what? Do you think I told the truth? I'm a pastor, okay? She goes, what'd you throw in the trash can? I don't know what you're talking about. And she goes and searches the trash can, and guess what? She finds the thing, and she's like, I'm touching! And I heard about that one for the next several months, okay? But see, these are funny stories, but you know what? And you know what? There's a part of me that, I'll just be honest, I hate that. There's this part of me that, I don't want you to control my life. That's when I'm in my worst moments. Like, oh, she's controlling me, blah, blah, blah. But when I'm in my best moments, you know what I say? I say, thank you, Lord, for this woman. Thank you that she keeps me in check. And I can say, what do you mean? A mocha frappe leads back to heroin? Yeah, it does. See, this is your loved one will not connect this at first. They got to learn this. They think that all these behaviors we're talking about here. No, Mom. You know, I know I'm pounding 8 Monster Energy drinks a day, but that's got nothing to do with my addiction. You know, I know I'm pounding Monster Energy drinks and then drinking NyQuil to go to bed. This is the stuff that happens. And you'll say, well, no, these things are all illegal. What's the big deal? I mean, yeah, he's pounding Monster Energy drinks, eating allergy pills, taking NyQuil, playing his Xbox for 6 hours a day. That is bad. And we all know it's bad. You know that's ridiculous. But I'm saying it's bad in terms of going back to their drug of choice. It's really bad. Okay, so let's finish escape. Avoid others. So when you start engaging in impulsive behaviors or compulsive behaviors, you start avoiding others because you're ashamed. How do you spend your time? Oh, I don't know. You don't want to say, I was just playing Xbox for 6 hours straight. So you kind of avoid people because you don't want to be held accountable. Then that causes more problems. See, and this is the cycle. Now I have more problems because I'm doing compulsive behaviors and I'm hiding from my loved one. Now that's causing me more stress. Now I need to go do more compulsive behaviors. And before you know it, there's a breaking point. And the breaking point is, when this cycle of problems, stress, compulsive behaviors, more problems, more stress, more compulsive behaviors reaches a critical mass, then the drug of choice raises its ugly head and whispers to us, I'll take your stress away right now, just come back to me. That's why it's a dangerous cycle that needs to be broken, because the compulsive behaviors will never relieve stress the way heroin does. It's just a fact. Heroin and alcohol and these other things, they relieve stress much more effectively than the Xbox or a Monster Energy drink. So it's always going to be there in the back of our mind, like, oh, I could go do that, and that will relieve my stress. So that's why we need to challenge ourselves and say, I'm going to say no to these behaviors up front. And yes, can I play some video games? Can I do some things? Yes, but do I need to do it in moderation? I need to be able to say no to it. And I need to watch myself with that. Managing problems and stress in a healthy way is key to long-term recovery. What can we do to help? Very simply, encourage them to connect to a community of other individuals in recovery who are actively seeking to change the 4 deeply embedded behaviors that we have discussed. The intern training program is a good place for them to continue this process. That's why the intern training program is so good, because they're still in the community here, they're given some freedoms, but they're now challenged. You need to deal with these behaviors. You need to go a little deeper in your recovery and deal with these behaviors that you're dealing with. And that's all I have. So thank you. Any questions? Yeah, so if you have any questions, we got a couple. We got till 11:30. We got about 12 minutes. So if anyone, if you have any question, someone want to get the ball rolling and ask it. Go ahead.
Do the students get to see this presentation?
Yes, they do. So actually, we were just talking about that over there. So I have a DVD that I made a while ago that's more geared toward the students. We're talking about incorporating that into the curriculum here. So yeah, you're right, they need to see it. The question was, do the students get this teaching? And yes, they do. Any other questions? Yes? So I'm not as familiar with the short term, but definitely, you know, so in the short term program, we're definitely beginning to teach these type of concepts. Yes. But of course, you know, the unique thing about our program is we're telling everyone you need to go into the long-term program because that's when you really have more time, more space to deal with these issues. But yeah, definitely the danger of compulsive behaviors, yeah, that's all there. I mean, these 4 points are really, I would say, the bedrock of what is taught in Teen Challenge in general. Like, these are the 4 things that really, I've just kind of tried to boil them down into these simple 4 points. So the short answer to the question is yes. Yeah. Yes, so this is being recorded right now. So this will be made available. Yeah, so Carol, if you call Carol, her number's in there, she can send you a copy of this on DVD if you'd like to share with others. Yeah?
What's the best way to convince an 18-year-old that if you're 11 months, a long-term program is something that you should do?
Yeah, so what's the best way to convince an 18-year-old to stay into the long-term program? So I was 19, I had just turned 19 when I went into the program. So basically what you have to do as a family is try to leverage your influence upon him to keep him in the program. So there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to that question. But basically the concept is, what leverage do you have? Meaning, what resources are you providing to him that if you took them away, he wouldn't be able to function, so usually it's, does he live with you? Is he counting on coming to live with you? So you have that discussion with him. You know, and all these things can be, it's just, like, for example, what I would say to him is, look, we're thinking about, we want you to be in the long-term program, and you can't come home if you choose to not go into that. And see what his response is. I'm not saying, I'm not advocating the tough love thing either, where it's just like, we'll just go live on the street then. You know what I mean? There's a balance there. But you definitely want to try to push those buttons. You know what I mean? You want to try to push as many buttons as you can. Like, you're not going to have anywhere to live. We're not going to support you. And try that. And then if it becomes clear that he's just so dead set on not doing that, then you go to maybe a plan B. And actually, we need to put this resource somewhere where they can get to it. I have this great, and I'll get it to Amber, and we'll try to get it. I have this great contract that this guy gave me, this other clinician gave me, of just like a contract that you fill out. It's real extensive, 2 or 3 pages. It's like a contract, an agreement that you fill out with him that says if any of the following things happen when you're living with us, it's going to trigger this response. So like, have it on paper, to say, if you use drugs, if you do this, if you do that, it's going to trigger that you're going to be. But I mean, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if anyone else can relate to what she's saying. How do you as a family motivate your loved one to stay in this process? And the one thing I will say is families have the most leverage in the world. Like when my mom told me, sorry, we're not coming to get you and you're not coming home. I mean, I just had to suck it up and stay. And it was I'm sure it was the hardest thing for her to do, but she did it. Yeah, anyone?
You guys have the internship program.
Yes, we do.
And how do you motivate students towards the end of the 9 months to possibly get that?
Yeah. So the question was, do we have the intern program in the Western Pennsylvania Center? The answer is yes. And how do you motivate somebody to commit to go to the intern program after graduation? So, basically, I mean, we do have some incentives for them to go into that program. So they do get a stipend, so they get some money, and they have opportunities to serve in the ministry and actually move up in the ministry. A lot of times what we'll tell them is, well, you can go to college online. So in other words, we try to put some incentives there, like, listen, this is going to further your life. It's not just 6 more months in the program as a student. You know what I mean? Like, there's actually, you could go to online school. You know, you'll start making a little bit of spending money. You know, you'll be able to serve other guys. So I would push those type of things. Like, look, it's an opportunity for you. I mean, all you got to tell them is, hey, man, the president and CEO of this organization went through that program. That's all you got to tell them. I mean, the president and CEO is a product of the intern training program. Be like, hey, you know, so you could be the next Chris McFadden. There you go. You could be the next. You could run this place. You know, just let them know, like, hey, you could do great things here. There's great opportunities. And you know, a lot of guys do sign on for it. So, you know, and then you know, I would connect with his pastoral mentor and say, hey, you know, can we have a phone call or something and talk to him about possibly staying and see what he says. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. The intern program? So he's asking what part of Pennsylvania is the intern program in. So the intern program is here, Western Pennsylvania, and it's in Philadelphia as well. And actually, they can basically, you know, it's different by different centers, but basically, in theory, they could go to any teen challenge in the world. Actually. So, you know, there's a lot of teen challenge. Actually, he was telling me that he's had a couple reach out to him, Brian, over there, like saying, hey, we need interns. So they can, it depends on what their need is, but a lot of times I could call up another director of another center and say, hey, I got a guy, he'd be, you know, I think he might be a good fit. He could go anywhere. Well, it's at the Women's Center. So I'm not sure how much need there is in the Women's Center in Philadelphia for interns. Yeah, that one's for women. So, I mean, the main go-to places they do the intern program is here and with me. That's the main place we send them. So there's a pretty big developed intern program right here on this campus. And you know, we push it, we encourage you family members to push them in that direction because it's really where a lot of our success is. Because now they're leaders. You know, of course they're always under a staff member, but they're leaders now. They're viewed as leaders, and the students view them that way, and then it causes them to have to step up their game a little bit. And they have to now walk the walk. Yeah.
What was the long-term program? What was on a regular basis to help them get constantly roots of what is the you know, to try to get them in a better space so they will.
Yeah. So her question is, what goes on in the long-term program to help them grow? I can't really answer that because I work at the Pittsburgh Center, so I can just speak for the Pittsburgh Center. So that, you know, we have a combination of academics and counseling and work therapy, those three things. So what goes on in the long term is they have a pastoral mentor assigned to them that they can talk about their personal struggles one-on-one. And they have academics, which is a group setting where they learn the principles we're teaching here. And then a big part of our program is the work therapy aspect in the sense of they're placed in situations here where they have to put in a day's work, which is important, right? And then what the idea is that when they're in that environment, that's when certain behaviors are going to manifest. And then the staff members and the interns that are assigned to those areas, you know, have little mini counseling sessions basically all day. Like they'll tell you that it's all day here's a mini counseling session on everything. So they're in real life situations because they're going to work today, they're going to this, and we're just trying to help them. So it's a very organic process that they're going through. They're living their daily lives in this environment, this controlled environment. And we as staff and interns are trying to interact with them in such a way to confront these behaviors. To say, hey man, is that really worth getting angry over? Hey man, is that really what we need to do? And as Michael said, you know, earlier, they're here, they are trying to really up the game as far as providing more counseling in the long-term program. That's what the outpatient program is for. So when they go over to the long-term, they will now have a higher level of counseling that they can connect with through the outpatient process that's here. So outpatient meaning they're still living here in the long-term program, but they're going to a building where they're getting what you would get in, if you know, community outpatient would be the same thing you would get in a community outpatient. They're just getting it here on the property. So yeah, we're really always trying to develop that more and more. 2 more minutes. Any last questions? Yes.
What percentage from the 38 program and long-term program
That's an Amber question. What percentage of the 30-day program goes into the...
Right now, we're about 40%.
Yeah, so that's always our goal, and of course, you know, sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amber, many times we'll have guys go through the 30-day program multiple times before they bounce over to the long term. So many times, you know, if they don't come to the long term right away, don't get discouraged. We're still a resource for you. So if they decide to come home and it messes up again, you just need to call the admissions office again and be like, hey, he's back out there again, but he seems willing to come again, and then we'll try again. That's sometimes how it works, unfortunately. It's not always a one-shot deal, but of course, you know, we know where the success is in the long-term residential Christ-centered treatment. But, you know, if you're dealing with an 18-year-old, you know, when I was 18, I knew everything, man. He couldn't tell me anything. So it's just keep that consistent, loving, but firm pressure that this is where we want you to be. This is our plan for your success. We want you to be in this program. And just keep pushing that button, like I said, until something happens. Any final questions? We're hit 11:30 right on the dot. So yeah, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break. I just want to thank everybody for your attention, and I appreciate it. And you know, and I said it last night. I'll say it again in front of everyone. You know, our restoration program is here for you. We do not want your loved one to relapse. Of course we don't, but we want you to know that our resources to help your loved one does not stop when they walk across this stage up here and graduate. So you need to know that. And we understand that a relapse, you know, like I said, it's scary, but it might happen. But we want you to know that your first call should be to our admissions office and say, you know, my son's a graduate, he's back out there, you know, because you'll see, I mean, some of these guys, some of the best guys that are doing the best, they had to have that relapse. I mean, it just was part of their process. They had to fall on their face, and now they're doing way better than they would have if they didn't. So just don't lose hope. You know, it's part of the process for many guys, but it's not the end of the world for them. It can be a great stepping stone. So please, this training you'll be able to get a hold of this training. Please share it with others, and just continue to try to push your loved one in that direction. Real quick. Yes. Yeah, the restoration program is a lot less financially an issue. I'll just put it that way. I mean, we do ask for some money for that, but it's not like the other programs. We'll get your loved one in and we'll worry about that. But we definitely, it's a resource that is available for you that we want you to know about. So thank you, and take a 5-minute break, and then we got a couple more things, and then we'll wrap up. So thank you.